We work through a submission process, so there's a form on our website, and we set the form live in December, and then we kind of wait a month to allow for people to get their foot in the door, really. And so once we've got that critical mass in kind of early January, we start kind of looking through those submissions and piecing together the program. So we actively program from kind of mid-December through to mid-April, which is the final deadline that the Fringe set for getting into the printed Fringe brochure. A month before that, in mid-May, there is an early bird deadline where you save £100 on your registration. So about 80% of our program's in place by that point, and then the next kind of 20% falls into place in the month that follows. So it's a pretty kind of comprehensive form that kind of leads you through all the bits of information that we need to know. More so than anything, it's a bit of an administrative endeavour because we get so many applications. It's just to allow us to kind of track your progress through the programming the process. But what we're looking for is a good sense of the kind of show that you want to bring. A lot of the work that we're looking at hasn't been created yet, so it's anything that can give us the best idea possible about that. So we're looking at previous critical response to work, anything that you've got on the show that you're currently making. So that can be scratch performances, work in progress performances. If you've got any upcoming dates, you can put that in there, and we'll see, one of us can kind of come down to kind of see it. There's a section on kind of marketing, so we want to look at how you're proposing that you are going to be able to sell that show in that kind of busy Fringe environment. There's a section on kind of the technical aspects of the show. So obviously we've got loads of different spaces, and some have you're able to do lots of stuff in, some a little bit more restricted. So that helps us kind of consider the spaces that you're kind of angling for. There's a section where you can upload images, mood boards, tour packs, lots of ways to sort of kind of put forward your project. And then we also offer the option to do it as a video application or a audio application if you find the written application throws up any specific challenges. It's worth noting that there will be some venues where the comedy programme starts earlier, where you might have kind of newcomer comedy in the kind of mid-afternoon, and then there will be venues where the theatre runs later. So that's not hard and fast, but we will always kind of make kind of suggestions on this. We're taking a more holistic view of the programme. So if there's a show where we see that the audience for these two shows is very similar, we'll then be making suggestions as to kind of moving one out of the way of the other so that it can kind of dovetail as opposed to kind of clash. We always see that there's a real eagerness to go kind of late afternoon, early evening as kind of theatre o'clock at the Fringe. One thing to kind of to think about in terms of that is there's a real sort of kind of logjam of big pieces of theatre at that time, and so a lot of the time we would sometimes advocate going much earlier in the day than you're at first kind of considering. And so we'll always try and do the best by you in terms of what's going on around you in that kind of programme. Because we've got such a huge number of spaces, we have a pretty kind of broad remit for what we're looking for. So there's not actually a huge amount that we wouldn't take. So we're just looking for a good idea where around it's demonstrated that whoever's doing that show can kind of sell that show, and that it will have a kind of angle at the Fringe to kind of cut through the kind of busyness of the Fringe. We tend not to do too much kind of performance art or dance pieces, and we tend not to do a huge amount of kind of cabaret. There are those sort of kind of late night slots where we might do bits like that, but we take a pretty kind of broad range of kind of theatre, comedy, children's work. Our day at the Fringe is split between children's work in the morning, and then sort of kind of late morning it starts to shift over into theatre, and then in the late afternoon it starts to shift over into comedy.